Tonight we are welcoming John McGill, speaking to us all the way from across the Atlantic. Our speaker, John McGill's passion for astronomy started when he was growing up in the 1960s, with the early days of NASA and watching the Apollo moon landing. These events led to his own model rocket launches that he still enjoys doing today. When John's middle school age son developed an interest in astronomy during the 90s, they brought a real telescope that they observed all day at night sky. John is a NASA credentialed photographer and journalist and can give a unique perspective of NASA's present-day space program. If John is not covering the rocket launch, you may find him hosting planetarium shows at Ford College, or at an outreach event for future astronomers. Henry Ford College is situated in Dearborn, just outside Detroit. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome John McGill.
Okay, well, thank you. And first, I want to say what an honor it is to be invited to give a speech or a talk to your group. And I just want to say the title is Up Close and Personal Rocket Launch Photography. And with that being said, tonight I'm going to take you along behind the scenes with me as I document history in the making, covering rocket launches from Florida and Texas. So with that, let me see if we can get going here. And okay, we're going to start off back in around 2018. In SpaceX at that time was still developing their Crew Dragon, and the Crew Dragon was, as it says, for astronauts to be taken to the International Space Station. And one of the few remaining tests that needed to be done was what they call as the abort test. And what that test is it takes the capsule off of the booster in case of some catastrophic event. And so with that, this is what we do out here. We set up cameras at the launch pad, and these are sound triggered cameras. And this is one of my camera setups, and that just basically has like a Rubbermaid container. This one's a Sterilite, but we put that over the camera so that it doesn't get rained on, because sometimes these cameras will sit out there for a couple days in case there's a scrub. And even if there's not any rain, there's so much humidity in Florida that these will be dripping wet in the morning. And this is another camera that I had set up on the opposite side of the launch pad, and this one I just have wrapped in plastic. And the camera, since it's a remote camera, this unit on the top is what's called a MSAS trigger, and that's activated by sound. When the decibels get real high, it starts firing the camera. So we set it high enough that if rain hits the plastic or something like that, it doesn't trigger. But when that is so loud, it will start triggering. And this is one of the images that was taken with that camera. And this is, I don't know how to figure it to meters, but it's about 300 yards from the launch pad. And this building down here, this is where those rockets are put together. And this one was the camera that was on the other side. And this camera was set at very high speed rate. So this was set at 1/4000th of a second. And as you can see, it was daytime, but the background is all dark because we're focusing in on the rocket. This is called the flame shot. And with this flame shot, we can see basically the Falcon 9 has 9 rocket engines. And so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and they just continue around in a circle. And this is the last out of that set of images. We get about 4 images per second, and that's less than a second. It's off the launch pad. And now I want to take you up to the top up here. This is where I take the next set of images from. Building is called the Vehicle Assembly Building, and this is 526 feet tall. It's the tallest building. Oh, it was. There's a taller building now in Florida, but it is the largest one-story by volume building in the world. And here's that rocket going off. Again, this is a test mission. And so what's going to happen is when it gets up to a certain point, they're going to simulate a catastrophic event, and then this capsule is going to be pushed off of the booster down here. So this is the upper stage, and this is the main booster. And again, right now it's cleared the tower. And from my vantage point on the VAB, we got clouded over, so we didn't see the actual explosion. So this was the feed from SpaceX. And this is the capsule going this way. And this is the upper stage that's continuing on. In the main booster, that one got destroyed in that explosion. So here now, finally, this upper stage has come back through the clouds, and I'm able to pick it back up. And that's a close-up of it. So now after they had that successful test, it's been some time, and this is Jim Bridenstine. He is the NASA administrator, and this, I think you all know, is Elon Musk. And Jim was getting very impatient with Elon because Elon started spending more time down in Boca Chica on his Starship, and that was Elon's pet project. But Jim, he just wanted to get astronauts launched on an American rocket to the space station after about a 10-year hiatus. And so they called a meeting out in Hawthorne, California. And so I went out there, and that's Jim, Elon, and this is Doug Hurley and Bob Boykin. And Doug, he was going to be the one that was going to be the commander on the first flight with crew on board. And Doug, Bob, he was the pilot. I want you to know that Doug, he was the last man that flew the space shuttle in 2011. So he's wanting to go back to the space station. We dubbed this the makeup meeting. And this is the status of what's considered the Crew Dragon that was going to take them up to the space station. And you can see there's still a lot more work that needed to be done at this point. So now we move forward, and now it's all ready. It's all stacked. It's on top of the Falcon 9 rocket, and Doug and Bob are ready to fly off to the ISS. So they have a big celebration, and this is astronaut Sunny Williams, and she's the one that was going to be on the competing Boeing rocket called the Starliner. And if you remember, that was the one that when she went up, her and Butch Wilmore, they got stranded up at the space station. And they had a mock-up of the crew capsule. And from that abort test, this is where the Super Dracos are. These were what was used to push the capsule off if there was a problem. These were also supposedly going to be used to land this for a land touchdown, but that got scrapped because they wanted to get this speeded up, and so they just used parachutes, which were proven time and time again all the way from the Apollo days. So this was a night launch, so here's ignition, and this is liftoff. And there you can see it going off into the sky. So now he's all happy. This was the first time I seen him smile. This was at a media conference right after the launch test. So now we're going to move on to a different type of rocket. This one is called the Atlas V, and this rocket, it's been the main heavy lift rocket for the United States for a long time. And on this mission, it's carrying satellites for Amazon. And this was just recently. This was, I think it was September. And this here you got liftoff again. And let me go back one. What I wanted to show you here, you can see all the smoke coming out, all the plume. Well, this is where it comes through. This is like the rocket sits on, it's almost like a pitcher's mound that's hollowed out. And so this is called the flame trench. So all the uh, rocket exhaust and everything comes out through here and then it shoots out. And that's why it's all going this way. And what most of this smoke is steam from water deluge system. And these towers are lightning arresters because I don't, a lot of people don't realize, but Florida is the lightning capital of the world. And here's a picture of it going up, and you can see all the frost and condensation that's on it from the liquid cooled propellant. And these have solid boosters also that are on the side. So it has the main booster, then these strap-on solids. And here you can see this one had 5 strap-on solid rocket boosters. And here, this is just, I wanted to show the plume as it's going up and away. So now next we're going to move on to a crewed mission on the Falcon Dragon. And this is a typical crew launch. So this is the time clock. If you remember from the old days with Apollo, this used to be like an old scoreboard with the light bulbs. Well, now it's all digitized. So what first thing is about a week before launch, the astronauts fly in from Houston, and Houston's where they do all their training. So they have a big to-do at the airport that's right at Kennedy. And now the woman, let me go back. This woman here, she's the commander. That's Jasmine Mogabelli. And these are her kids. There's actually 2 children here. And this was after midnight, so they're pretty tired. But the media gets to spend some up close and personal time with the families right before they leave. And here they're coming out of what I call the dressing room, where they get their uh, flight suits on. And so now they're coming out and they're waving to their families. And again, they're waving. And then they give their huddle, their team salute. Then they go off to see their families. So you can see how happy they are to see their families. They probably haven't seen their family in probably the last 3 months. And here, this astronaut, he's given the heart, but it's kind of hard to give the heart sign with those big gloves on. And now they're ready to go to the rocket, and the doors are closing, and that's a sad moment. You can see the expressions all change on their faces. And I show this picture because when they go to the International Space Station, it's an instantaneous launch, and the space station has to be exactly in the right spot before they launch. And you don't have like an hour window on a lot of rocket launches, so it has to go right at the exact second. And so I just showed this as this is the ISS transiting the sun. And this was all the frames that I took on that one transit. And this was about less than 2 seconds transit. And the International Space Station is about the size of a American football field. I know you guys consider football something different than we do. And here's here's their rocket going off and leaving the pad. And now we're going to move on to the Mars 2020. You guys probably remember that. That's the one that carried the rover and the helicopter up, and that's all stuffed in this fairing. This fairing's about 15 foot in diameter. And again, you can see the strap-on boosters on this Atlas rocket. This one, I believe it had 3 strap-ons on it. And there this is my camera that's right at the launch pad again, so you can see all the frost and ice coming off of it. And that's just the last picture. I just wanted to show the plume that it's leaving. And this is from the camera that I'm actually pulling the trigger on. This is on my tripod. And this, again, these are all pictures now from my tripod. And here you can see there's kind of this haze. That's breaking the sound barrier. That's a point they call MECO, or not MECO, max Q, which means maximum dynamic pressure. And that happens right about the speed of sound. And here you can see it's starting to change its trajectory because what a lot of people don't realize that a rocket just doesn't go straight up. It goes on a trajectory and it starts following the curvature of the Earth. And here you can start seeing more of that trajectory. And here at this point, this is about 100 miles away from where I'm at. And these are the three solid boosters that's separating. And now we're with um, another one of the rockets, and this one is the Lucy mission. And the Lucy mission, that's the one that's going to the Trojan asteroids of Jupiter. And so we're at the time clock again. And this is the capsule. So everything that they want for this mission is all inside of this fairing. And you can see this one's more aerodynamic than I'll show you some later ones of some other rockets. And that was called the Lucy mission. And I took some pictures of the rocket up close to show some of this, because every once in a while you can see special messages that they put on there that most people never see. And this was to their workers for their dedication working through the pandemic. They were considered essential workers, and they had to get this rocket off in time because, as you know, the planets only align at a certain time in their rotations around the sun. And so we want them to rendezvous at the correct time to save on fuel. And here's another one for the workers that had passed while this project was underway. And some of these projects take decades to come to fruition from when they're first approved for budget. And this guy here, Craig Whitaker, he started on the project and he was working on it for so long that he had a son, and his son ended up becoming an engineer, and he worked on this project also. So that kind of tells you how long that these can take. And this was just a gold plaque that was put inside of it. And here's the launch, and that's going through the clouds. And sometimes I really enjoy or like to see the clouds because it gives you a different perspective of a launch than just a straight blue sky. And what I like about this picture, you can see it's going away. So this went up in its trajectory and now it's going away and down. And this is going due east. And the reason they go due east for some of these launches is to maximize the rotation of the Earth to give it that extra boost. And now we're back to SpaceX rocket, and this is what's considered a cargo dragon. In the cargo dragon, it's basically the same capsule, and this takes cargo to the International Space Station, so they still need the same hatch to dock with, and they just have the inside gutted and they fill that with cargo. So here it's launched, and what's famous about SpaceX is that they recover their boosters and they reuse them. So this is at one point in the return. This is coming down. It's not going up. So you see there's no upper stage or no capsule on it. And this is another one on this side. Same thing. And here's where it landed, but this one they had trouble with it. And one of the pumps that used to move the what's called the grid fins, that failed, and so this one got dumped in the water. This water here, this is part of just the water system inland, but on the other side of this hill is the ocean, and that's where it dumped. It was supposed to come back to a landing zone for a land touchdown. And here's one of the boosters that's been recovered. This one had been launched over 20 times. And you can see all the soot on it. And all that soot, that's not from burning up on reentry. That's just from the rocket fuel burning up where they don't put a lot of oxidizer with it. So it's not really fuel efficient. So it's just like kerosene burning, you know how dirty that can be. And it's another look at it. Okay, so now what SpaceX has is what's called the Falcon Heavy, and that has the main part, the normal Falcon 9 booster, and then it has two more Falcon 9 boosters on each side. So now you have 27 rocket engines on this one. And so here we're setting up our cameras for this launch, and this one I have the gold sun shield or heat shield for it because sometimes under these covers they can get well over 100 degrees. And again, I was up on top of the vehicle assembly building for this launch, so you can see it's kind of looking down the shot. And this was another flame shot, but this one was with my handheld camera. So I was working it real quick, changing. I think for this one, I was changing the speed and the f-stop on it. And here it's this is back to a normal shot. This is all with the same camera, so I'm fiddling real quick with the camera. And here, this time, you got two boosters that are coming back, both at the same time. We have two landing zones, and those are on the Air Force side, which used to be called Cape Canaveral. And this is just a depiction of another launch. And you can see where this one's going away from me. These are usually going north. And most of what Elon flies is to the space station. So this was going away. And so you don't see too much of the exhaust or the flame. So I went 60 miles north of the launch pad for this shot. So I got a side view of the rocket going past me. So this is already up into the vacuum of space, and it's going straight across. And this is not Photoshop. This is the actual color that the camera picks up on that flame. And here's what we term the SpaceX nebula. And this occurs the most vivid. It's right after sunset or right before sunrise when the ground, there's no sun on the ground, but the sun is still angled up into space and it catches this. And this is caused by the separation. Here's the upper stage, and this is the main booster. And when they separate, they use some fuel to cool down the rocket engines before they reignite it to get it acclimated. And on this reignition, there's a lot of raw fuel up in the atmosphere, and that's igniting it, plus the way the sun catches it. And you can see this is all happens in a matter of a couple seconds. And there's the upper stage again continuing on, and this is the main booster doing its boost back burn. And again, you can see this is the main booster down here. I mean, not the main, this is the upper stage. And you can barely see this faint thing. This is what they call a jellyfish, but that's because it's in the vacuum of space, and the plume from the rocket engine just expands really far out. And here's the main booster up here. And this is what we call a streak shot. So this shot, I'm about 11 miles away from the launch pad, and this is a time exposure. So I have the lens open for about 6 minutes in this exposure, so you can see it going up here. And here's where you have the separation. This is what's called MECO, or main engine cutoff. So this is when it cuts off, and then this is when the upper stage lights back up. And now we're at the Boeing Starliner. This was the other crewed capsule that Boeing's still trying to get operational and certified. This was the one that took Butch and Sonny up, and it had problems. But what I want you to see here is they had to add this skirt to it. If you go back to this, you can see this is kind of odd shaped where the main booster is smaller than the rocket. So they were getting vortices coming through here that was creating problems. So they added this skirt in after. And if you remember from the Apollo days, if any of you guys are old enough, you'll remember they used to have the Airstream that they used to go transport them in. Well, now Boeing is using this. It's basically like what you'd see at an airport. And here's it launching off, and this was on another Atlas rocket, and you can see those side strap-on boosters on it. This one had two, and then the center. And there you can see it going up. And the main problem with this one, this wasn't my picture, this is just a screenshot of it, but these are the thrusters for maneuvering it. Well, these were overheating and it caused problems, and that's why they had to have a meeting because of that problem, and they decided that it was too risky to bring those astronauts back home on that Starliner. So that Starliner came home empty, and SpaceX sent up the next crew mission. And usually crewed missions have 4 astronauts, but they only sent 2 up, so they used the 2 extra seats to bring the other 2 home when they all came home. And this is behind the scenes. These are our cameras set up at the news conference, and that's the control room. And when Butch and Sonny got stranded up there, Sonny, she made her 6th spacewalk, and that put her as the woman astronaut with the longest time in space of about 62.5 hours, I think it was. And this is the cupola. All the astronauts say they never have enough time when they're on the space station to sit in the cupola. This is like a bay window, and they can watch the Earth going below them. So now we're in Texas. We're at Starbase. This is Elon Musk, where he's building that Starship. And this is what's called the Rocket Garden. And these are all unused rockets that he built. And then he come up with newer revisions. And so these were never used. And they'll probably end up being museum pieces in the future. So now we're here for Flight Test 2. I know they just completed Flight Test 11, but I was down there for Flight Test 2, and so this is what's called Hoppy, and this was the first spaceship, well, not spaceship, but first test vehicle that Elon used to test his rockets and land, and so this was the first to take off and land without being destroyed. And this is now being used as a water tower. And so here's my setup for this launch. This is one of the closest spots we can get to a rocket launch, and this is the world's largest rocket. And here I had a trail camera set up. This one I took infrared picture of the flames and the plume coming out to us. And so when I went to retrieve my camera after the launch, this was the first picture I took, and I was mad. I was disappointed. It was so blurry, and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't set the focus properly, because we taped the focus so that we don't have this problem, and I just didn't know what I did wrong. So then I go to the second picture, and everything's in focus, and I'm thinking to myself and scratching my head. Then I figured that was from the sound blast, the concussion coming our cameras, and it just shook the camera so much. But then after it settled down, everything was in focus. So here's the other shot. This one I think is the one that I have for the cover shot for this talk. And the other one, and here now you can start to see the plume of smoke coming over and engulfing our cameras. And this camera back here on the pole, this one actually got damaged. A piece of debris hit it and took a chunk out of it. In flight test 2, this was the first time that all 33 engines lit up on this super heavy booster. So I called this 33 candles. And here you can see Starship going through in the speed of sound and creating that vapor cone. And this was on separation when the booster separated from the upper part, which is called Starship. And here you can see they're starting to have problems. There was excess fuel that was dumping out. And next thing, it blew up. So this is one of the images I got of the first part of the explosion. And then the next part, you can see how much bigger it's gotten. Okay, so now we're at the Goddard Space Flight Center. This is in Maryland. And this is where they're building what was called this Parker Solar Probe. And this woman here, she was head of this project, and her name is Nikki Fox, and she's originally from England. And this is the Parker Solar Probe back here. And the Parker Solar Probe, that's orbiting the sun right now, and that's the fastest manned object that's ever been built, and that's going 430 miles an hour. I guess you guys are going to have to do the conversion on it. But this was made to touch the surface of the sun. And after they got it, this was the last part of the testing procedure. And after this meeting, they packed it up and they put it on what's called the guppy, the super guppy. And this front hatch opens up and then they stuff it in there. And that way they can send it by plane down to Kennedy as opposed to sending it by freighter or by train. And this is on what's called the Delta Heavy rocket. These pictures, I'm 11 miles away when I was taking this. This way I took a video, and this was ended up being a screenshot from the video. And there it's going off. And when they say touching the surface of the sun, they're talking about the corona. And it passes through that. And this was my picture of the last solar eclipse. So now we're going to the International Space Station, and now we're headed to the moon. So I go to Mission Control. This is out in Houston, Texas. And I got invited to watch after they just got done doing a practice mission. So this picture here, this made it to National Geographic's on their website, Space and Time. And here, this shows you the trajectory that the spacecraft is going to take, the Orion spacecraft. And what you have to remember is that the moon is moving, and so that's why these orbits look funny like that. Before that Orion capsule took off, they had what they called was the parachute drop test. So this was out in Yuma, Arizona, and I think there's 9 parachutes that end up on this test, where they have the first ones that are they call them drogue chutes, and then the next set slows it down, and then the last set are these fully opened up ones. And if you notice the capsule, it's on an angle. This is supposed to land in the water. But for this test, they were just coming back to land. And if you notice, it's on an angle. And that angle is also so that when it goes into the water, it's a softer landing than if it was like a belly flop, I guess you'd call it. And when you think of those parachutes, you think that they would be real strong, and you'd think that it would be like tarp material or canvas. But here you can see that's it's like silk and so thin. You can see that's my hand on the back side of it. And here's one of the mock-ups of that Orion capsule. And up here by the top, that's where the parachutes go, and they compress those to the density of a log, and they use pyrotechnics to blast them out. In this canister here, this is what's going to be called the gateway, and this is going to orbit the moon. And this is going to continue orbiting the moon. And when the rocket comes up, it's going to dock with this. That's the Artemis or the SLS rocket with the Orion capsule. That's going to dock with this gateway. And then from there, they're going to get into another rocket that's going to take the astronauts down to the surface of the moon. So you can see it's not very big. And so here we're on rollout. This is the rocket that went to the moon. This was the first one, and this was an unmanned rocket. But this was coming out of that vehicle assembly building where it was all stacked. And this is actually the launch platform, and that's being taken out to the launch pad on what's called the crawler. And this was the same crawler that they used during the Apollo and space shuttle missions. In here, this next one, this is the core for Artemis 2 that's derived. That's this section right here. That comes in by freighter. And that's going over to the VAB and getting stacked and getting ready for the crew that's going to go around the moon. And so here, this is back to the first one, and this is what they called the rollout. And this is going out to the pad. In this one, they have an abort system that was used back in the Apollo days, and they're just repurposing it. So let me go back. You can see it way up on the top up here. Way up here. That's what that is. So that's supposed to say the crew. In that rock crawler, another name for it, it's been called the rock crusher, because it's so heavy that it crushes the rocks that it rolls on. And they get about 10 transits across the rocks before they got to replace them all. And here I took this picture because it became night and it was still on its way to the launch pad, and that's where it's going to the moon. And this was just my novelty shot. This was taken with a 360 camera during the rollout. So here's the VAB, and then it's transiting around. And so I call this Big Rocket on a Tiny Planet. And this was my tribute to the past Apollo and Space Shuttle program. And this was up on a hill. This is an observing site, and it's basically used for tourists, just to show them, to give them a look out at the launch pads. But here you can see the rocket here, and this monument is simulating a rocket taking off into space. And so we have what's called the media center, and it's just I'm humbled when I read this and to know that I'm part of the journalists that are now covering the new trip to the moon. And here's one of my friends. It's Kirby, and he was in high school back when Apollo 11 launched, and he actually wrote to NASA, and he got credentialed as because he was on the high school newspaper, and so he was showing off his Apollo 11 and Apollo 15 press credentials. And so while we're waiting for this rocket launch and we're going out to set up our cameras, there was a storm, and there was a funnel cloud. And this was back out over the ocean. And here's some of our cameras that we're setting up. And here's the rocket actually going off. So Yeah, this went around the moon and then came back. That was the test mission. And this is one of the guys that takes the pictures. He's a veteran and he bought this as Army surplus. And this was an old Nike missile tracker. And he put all new electronics in it. And this is his control room that he has for it. And what you have to know is that the mainstream media, they don't cover rockets hardly unless it's a major event. And so most of the media that cover these rocket launches are self-funded, and it's truly just they're doing it because they have a passion for it. And his is uslaunchreports.com. That's where you can find his videos. His are all video. And one other guy that I want you to look up, he goes by Astronomy Live, and he's on YouTube, and he does rocket tracking videos using telescopes, and he's created software that you can use for tracking satellites, and he does live broadcasts. And with that, that's my presentation. So are there any questions? You can start asking if you have any.
John, thank you very much. Some absolutely superb photos, and I'm sure there's going to be questions. I've got one or two. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you're online, will you put a digital hand up? And if you're in the room, will you attract my attention? So I'll kick off with questions. The vibration from the rocket, how close do you actually, or
I didn't catch the last part of that, Paul.
I'm just asking about how close you place your cameras to a launch.
Our cameras are less than 200 yards, and what happens is most of the time, most of the sound and vibration, they have what's called a water deluge system, and they usually dump that whole water tower in a matter of seconds, and they use that to keep the sound vibration down.
And just as a follow-up, where are you standing when it goes off?
Okay, they have a safety zone, and we can't get any closer than 3.5 miles. So it depends on where the launch pad is. We have regular designated viewing areas that we set up ourselves with our cameras on tripods. But 3.5 is the closest. Most of the time, we're about 4 miles away.
Okay. I'll get back with some more questions. I'm looking for questions. Anything you want to add? No? Oh, Tony Morris in the room.
Hi, John. With the latest models of DSLRs, they can do very high frame rates. Do you ever attempt to do that in the launch?
I do use a high frame rate. I have normally I set my camera at about 10 frames a second, but it is capable of doing 30 frames a second. But it tends to be too many images to go through. I normally take about 1,000 images per launch, and so it takes quite a bit of time to go through it, and you use up a lot of memory. And to me, I don't see the value of that many images of the same thing. And I know you could probably make a movie with that many frames, but I prefer to just do one frame at a time and really take your time looking at it and, you know, just taking a deep dive into the shot.
Henry, online.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You were talking about the number of booster rockets that they have for different launches. Is it that you standard rocket that's got a certain power, and you then calculate through how much extra power you need for a heavier payload than the standard? So you might have 2 booster rockets, 7 booster rockets, depending.
Yes, it's on the Atlas rockets. It's a maximum of 5 boosters, and on the Falcon Heavy, that has the 2 regular what it's called rocket kerosene, rocket grade kerosene. But the Atlas, those boosters, those are solid rocket fuel. And the difference being that the solid rocket fueled boosters, you light those and then it's just a straight thrust from beginning to end. There's no throttling them, and there's no gimbaling for steering or anything. But with the rocket grade kerosene style engines, those you can throttle them, and you can also change directions with the gimbals in them.
Just going back to your camera setup, John.
Yes.
What cameras are you using?
My main camera is a Canon R3, and that's a mirrorless camera, and I'm using an 800 millimeter lens on it, an 800 millimeter f5.6, which basically is a telescope. I know some of the guys, they've tried using telescopes, but the one flaw with the telescope is trying to keep focus. You have to manually do the focus with a telescope. But with a camera lens, that does the automatic focusing, so it's takes a lot of the stress away as you're using it. And the cameras that I put at the launch pad, those we dub those throwaways, and we buy used cameras on eBay for about $100 to $200, and you know, they're older cameras like Canon R3 through, you know, the newer ones. But I have an older T2i, but the T2i, I don't like that one as much as I like the T3i and up, because the T3i and up, they have the view screen that's you can swivel and turn it, so you don't have to get on your hands and knees if you're taking a low shot.
Okay, and finally, just going back to equipment, tripods on your cameras. They look very. Do you need any weight to dampen any?
No, I don't use extra weight, but I do have them all staked and tied down, the tripod. So sometimes I'll use big tent stakes, or sometimes I use the screw style dog tie out hookup, you know, where you screw it into the ground. And then I use a bungee cord, and that holds it down.
Thank you for that. Roy Gunson in the room.
Hi, John. I was just wondering, sorry, I'm feedbacking here. I was wondering, talking about cameras set up over a large number of hours, once close to the launch site. I was wondering about the powering of them. Do you have problems with batteries, or do you have some sort of external power lead?
No, the cameras, just the normal camera battery, can last a good 48 hours. Because what happens is they have it where it turns off. It has a setting in the camera where it turns it off, and those MyOps sound triggers, they actually give two pulses. So one pulse starts the camera back up, and then the second pulse takes the shot. And the MyOps trigger, that runs constantly, but it uses a small battery, and that lasts longer than the camera setting does. Oh, and they usually, if the rocket takes longer than 48 hours from the time we set our cameras, then NASA gives us time to go out and reset. So we'll take out new batteries and wipe down the lenses and, go from there again.
Okay, Roy, in the room, Loz?
What post-processing do you actually do on any of these shots, if at all?
I do some processing. Most of it, I shoot on the underexposed setting. I'm usually a one-stop underexposed, and I use Lightroom, and I don't use any Photoshop, but I do use Lightroom, and a lot of it's bringing up the shadows and cropping. I do a lot of cropping, and the cropping gives you those close-up looks. And I know a lot of people think you have to have mega, like 40 mega sensor camera, and mine is the R3. That's a sports camera, and that's only, I think, 24 megapixels. And but the way that Canon has set that up and with the focus, you can really crop in and not have a lot of the digitizing of it. But I do sometimes run a program called denoise, and that it's used when you're at real high ISO numbers. Like sometimes I'll shoot at 52,000 ISO, and that was unheard of back in the digital camera days. But now you can get really clean shots with a little processing with that denoise.
I believe denoise is the form of AI to actually.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Are you not concerned that it's basically making up data for your images?
No, it's not making up data. It's just cleaning it up. You're not changing anything. It's not like you're adding anything to it. When I say adding, um, I consider it no more than just raising your exposure.
Okay, and I'm not too sure if I heard it. But what actually took you from just an interest in astronomy and with your middle son, having a telescope to him, to actually being a photographer, and getting that close to rocket launches?
I didn't catch that whole question.
Apologies. I said, what was the sort of pinnacle point that took you from being interested in astronomy and sort of having that telescope with your middle child to actually being practically sat on top of a rocket with a camera?
Okay, that's yeah, that was a long journey, and I went from using my telescope, and I became a vice president in our astronomy club back here in Michigan. It's called the Ford Amateur Astronomy Club, and with that, I didn't know the sky too well, and so one of our members says, "Well, why don't you start working at the planetarium?" And I says, I don't know this guy well enough. He says, oh, that's the good thing about working at the planetarium. That way you get to know this guy. And so then from that, we used a lot of NASA videos that we would put on the dome of the planetarium. And so from there, I got enlisted in NASA's, oh, I forgot what they call it now. But basically, it's for like museums and that, and it's the NASA Museum Alliance. So once I was a member of the NASA Museum Alliance, I was given a lot of talks to grade schools that would come into the planetarium. And so from there, I got recruited to become a NASA Solar System Ambassador, and that's what I still am now. And that's a volunteer program. But with that, you get a lot of opportunities to do things with NASA, people giving you directions and stuff. And then from there, we used to have what was called a convention that we dubbed it was the astronauts reunion, and that used to be held out in Tucson, Arizona, and that was prior to COVID. We used to fill up a 5,000 room a JW Marriott, which was like a resort. And we would have that many the astronauts and guests, and we would have moonwalkers and people from the Apollo era. And being that I was a solar system ambassador, I was offered the opportunity to introduce the some of the Apollo astronauts and the mission control guys and the people that worked there. And so, as I was introducing those, I got hooked up with a guy that I call the astronauts. They all have books out, and they all have their co-authors. I call them actually handlers more than co-authors, and they go on the tours with the astronauts. Well, one, he used to be a NASCAR photographer, and then he ended up becoming a NASA photographer. And so from being around those guys and talking with them, that got me interested into becoming a photographer for the rocket launches. And that's where I am today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a long story, but it took a lot of time to get there.
Thank you for that, John. Not seeing any more questions. And that just leaves me to ask everybody to join me in giving a big Next Spent in Astronomical Society thank you. Thank you very much, John McGill.
Thanks everyone for staying and not falling asleep on me.